All right. And in the chat, Sally says, my sister's having problems getting on because of a new computer. Will this be recorded so she can see at another time? And yep, to answer your question, yes, it will be recorded, and we will share the link out to our YouTube channel when the video is ready. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Again, thank you everyone for being here today. We are so excited to have you all here for our Ask Me Anything event, this one focusing on communication technology. Please note again that we are recording the event, and we'll share the recording after it has been uploaded to our YouTube page. For those who have not previously attended an Ask Me Anything, this event is an idea born out of the community where I AM ALS advocates living with and impacted by ALS come together to answer questions from an audience of people who are interested in a specific topic. For this event, we have an incredible group of panelists, both community members and staff from organizations in the assistive communication technology and ALS space that are super well equipped to answer your questions. I'm going to go through some housekeeping things, and then I promise I will be speaking way less, and you'll be able to hear from everyone else who is spotlighted here on the screen today. So our panelists will first answer questions that were submitted during registration. Audience members can also share their stories to answer these questions as well. Our hope is that the event is more of a conversation and less of a presentation. We have a ton of questions as well, so we're going to do our best to get through those. If you have questions that you did not submit when you registered, you can send those in the chat, and what we'll do is add them to the list of questions we already have. If we don't get to them, we will be sure to follow up with you after the event. We encourage you again to participate in the discussion by using the chat feature or the raise your hand feature. We'll read the chat in real time to ensure that all who wish to chime in are able to actively participate. To raise your hand, you can click on the reactions icon at the bottom of the Zoom screen and then click raise hand. And then also, as always, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. This will just allow for the discussion to flow without any interruptions or background noise. And finally, we'll be sending out all the links that are shared during the discussion in an email following the event, along with a resource guide with information shared in the discussion. So now that we have the boring things out of the way, boring but important, I am going to briefly share about who we have on our panel today. You also received an email with an attachment with a lot more detail on both the organizations and the panelists. So joining us from Bridging Voice is founder and technical director, Malcolm Lehman. We also have Emily Kornman, from the speech language pathologist from Team Gleason Foundation. On our panel are Charlie Wren and Ociel Mendoza. Both are incredible community members who are advocates and they're living with ALS. And then finally is Mackenzie Mock from I AM ALS, who I'm going to pass it over to briefly to share more about her role as an ALS support specialist.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see so many people joining us tonight to learn more about communication technology. Like Blake said, my name is Mackenzie, and I'm on the ALS support team at I AM ALS. I think it's helpful to think of the ALS support team as an ALS concierge service, and I always feel very fancy when I use the word concierge. We are not that fancy, but if you have questions about anything related to ALS, you are welcome to reach out to us. We'd be honored to help you find answers to any ALS related questions. Just to give you an idea of some things we can help you with, we can help you learn about ALS care in general. We can help you learn more about clinical trials, identifying your personal values. We can help you in identifying organizations that may be able to help you with finances, legal or insurance concerns. We can help with processing emotions and also help by providing information about practical daily living things such as home modifications or accessible vehicles. A bit about me. I am a speech language pathologist by training, and prior to joining the support team at I AM ALS, I worked as a consultant at Tobii Dynavox. While I am not currently practicing as a speech pathologist and my Tobii skills have gotten quite rusty, I'm honored to join this amazing panel tonight to share some information about obtaining communication devices and also speak to how the ALS support team may be able to help you with other ALS related needs. If you are in need of support and any of the services I mentioned earlier seem like they could be helpful to you, please feel free to reach out to the ALS support team, and I will drop our contact information in the chat in the Zoom event as soon as I'm finished talking. And you are also welcome to DM me through the direct message feature in Zoom if you would like. Please know if I'm unable to get back to you tonight during the event, a colleague or I will follow up with you in the coming days. And then just to take note also, my colleagues and I are going to record any resources that are shared during tonight's event, and we'll compile all of them into one single email and send it all out to you after tonight's event. And finally, I am going to stop talking soon. A quick note that if you do have a question tonight that none of the panelists here can answer, I'm volunteering myself and my lucky teammates at I Am ALS to try to find answers for you, and we'll get back with you. And I'm going to pass it back to Blake.
Thanks, Mackenzie. All right, well, one more thank you everyone for being here. We're going to go ahead and dive into the questions. This is probably our fastest intro we've ever done, so we're excited to get to the meat of the discussion. So our first question is for you, Emily. The person asked, I'm noticing changes in my speech. How do I get started with obtaining communication technology?
So the best way is to get in touch with a speech language pathologist. You can do that through your ALS clinic, or if that SLP is not comfortable with providing information on assistive technology or augmentative communication, you can always ask for a referral to an outpatient speech therapist that is comfortable with that. The most important thing is that communication technology is going to look different for everyone. So make sure you're working with someone who's really assessing like what are the most important needs that you have and trying out different technology to find what truly works best for you.
Thanks, Emily. And I did forget to mention one more housekeeping thing. We do have Aditi from I Am ALS who will be helping to read the chat. So if you hear her, what sounds like interrupting, she's just helping keep us up to speed with everyone who's here in the chat. So she won't be spotlighted, but she is playing an integral role in today. And I will read the first thing really quick since I'm already talking. Julie says, Kevin is using a tablet to watch and listen. He cannot access with eye gaze, and with that, not use the chat or raise hand. Thank you, Julie. Well, he's totally fine to unmute and participate that way. So our next question is also for Emily. The SLP at my ALS clinic said they weren't able to help me explore communication devices or message and voice banking. What should I do?
So again, you can always ask for a referral to a different speech therapist. And it's also okay to ask questions to that speech therapist SLP beforehand, like, have you worked with individuals with ALS before? Are you familiar with the different communication technology out there? You can be your own advocate in making sure you're working with someone who is comfortable, because this technology is super important. It's what you're going to be using to communicate with everyone. So we want to make sure that it's the right fit for you. With voice and message banking, you can do the same to work with an outpatient therapist, and you can also come to Team Gleason. We have support for voice and message banking through our services that we provide. So if you don't have an SLP that's comfortable with that or that's willing to provide that service, we'll provide it for free through our program services.
Thanks, Emily. So our next question is for Charlie, OCL, and then Nakam. So I think let's try to answer it in that order. Does a communication device with eye tracking work with glasses and also outside in the sunlight? I love this question. So I'll pass it to you, Charlie.
Can eye gaze work with glasses? Well, the answer is yes, but it does matter what type of glasses you use, which can determine your results. I would avoid using bifocals, anti-glare, or the blue light blocking glasses. The eye gaze cameras on a communication device are extremely sensitive to refracting light. Refracting light from ceiling fans, mirrors, windows, and other rooms can greatly affect your eye gaze while wearing glasses. It's recommended to get a single prescription, and what's known as computer glasses. It's a prescription to view a computer screen from about 18 inches away. It's not perfect, but these factors can add to your eye gaze experience. Now, can you use an eye gaze device outside? The answer is yes and no. It depends on what device you're using, and what you determine as working outside. The newer Tobis use their T5 eye gaze cameras and works pretty well outside, compared to other device manufacturers. It's not perfect, but the Tobis that use this eye tracker are leaps and bounds better outside, compared to anything else currently on the market. Here are a few tips if you want to use an older device outside. First, no device works in direct sunlight, even though the manufacturer might claim it does. Second, you must be in a shaded area, in an overcast day, or under an umbrella. Third, you need a dark background behind yourself, and preferably in front of you as well. Fourth, avoid reflections, and wear darker colored t-shirts. Finally, remember that everything affects your eye gaze cameras. Outside, bright colors, reflections, sunlight, and your eyes are competing against one another, and assume that your eyes are in last place. These recommendations can have varying effects, and you can implement most of these recommendations indoors as well. Another frequently asked question is, can you wear sunglasses and use your device? Again, it can vary from person to person, and the device being used, but yes, as long as your sunglasses aren't too dark, you can operate a communication device pretty well. As for myself, I've been in a few situations where wearing sunglasses helped, but never assume wearing sunglasses will make a difference if you are having problems using your device outside.
Thanks, Charlie. And OCL says, from my personal experience with the TD Pilot, eye tracking works great with normal glasses, but it's a little less accurate and consistent with sunglasses on. It still works for the most part, but there have been times that I'm wearing sunglasses and it gives me some trouble with the speed of typing and selecting specific letters and words. When in sunlight, it also works fairly well, but it can sometimes get interrupted when the sun is bright and directly hitting the eye tracking bar. However, the quality of function will depend on the specific eye tracking device that you have. Thanks, OCL. Malcolm?
Sorry, Blake, before we move on to Malcolm, I just want to go back and chat. And Barbara asked, what is the best text to voice app? Garrett said, hi, everyone. My name is Garrett, and I was diagnosed June 2017. I'm a Navy veteran of 13 years. I'm blessed to have all the latest technology out there. I currently use a Surface Pro with a PCE YE5. I use Ability Drive to operate my wheelchair. I also use an app to use my cell phone to make calls and texts. And Barbara said, wow, did Charlie just do that in real time? Sean said, outside is mixed. For Tobii Dynavox, I have had most success with Pilot, then the PCI 5, then I13. All these can work in the sun. Kia said, hi all, how do you all like Talk to Me technologies? It takes a very long time for my dad to communicate. Would love for him to be able to communicate as fast as Charlie. This is amazing. Arlette said, I am blind in my left eye. Will that impact my eye gazing? And Sean said, I agree with Charlie. Chris said, I was just diagnosed and want to voice bank. When did you start voice banking? And Anita said, because I waited too long, is there technology that can bank my voice from recordings I have? And Sarah said, we started with my father right away. Back to you, Nakam.
Okay. Should I answer all of those questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just to get back to the glasses. So first of all, some of the other vendors besides Tobii have been coming out with devices that are able to be used in the sun. We don't have enough data on everything yet. So, but there are some other options. Some of the vendors' cameras do work better with glasses than others. And it really is something that you have to be evaluated on all of the devices to see exactly which ones work and which ones don't. And sometimes you can actually, there are many factors in the glasses that make a difference, such as, the prescription, if someone has a severe astigmatism, there are many, many factors. So the first thing is always to do, even during an evaluation, take off the glasses and see if that resolves all of the issues. And then sometimes you can even rectify the problem with the glasses by just getting a different pair of glasses. Because if it's a very low quality set of lenses, the outer perimeters of the glasses can distort the image of the eye to the eye tracker. And just by getting a little bit better quality lenses will fix the entire problem. So again, that's where you need the professional involved at the time of evaluation.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. We are rolling right ahead. This one's for OCL and then Charlie. Mackenzie, will you move your mouse? Thank you. Mackenzie, will you move your, there we go. What are other things you can do on a communication device besides communicating with speech? And OCL says, the possibilities are truly endless. I use my communication device to text and FaceTime family and friends, browse the web, keep an organized schedule and calendar, send emails, participate in weekly Zoom meetings, go on social media, pay bills, control smart home features in my house, play chess, watch movies and TV, and much more. Nearly everything you can do on a normal computer or tablet can be done on an eye gaze communication device. Just make sure that you contact Tobii Dynavox customer service when you receive the device and request an unlock code so you can unlock it for freedom to use it fully. If you don't unlock it, then you will be restricted to only use the communication features on the device. I believe the one-time fee to unlock the device is $25. And Charlie?
Wow. What can you do on your device besides speak? Believe it or not, you can do everything on your communication device that you can do on a regular computer. People assume that a communication device is unique and just limited to communication, but it can do so much more. You aren't limited to the communication software that comes with your device. For myself, I pay bills, write and listen to music, do social media, stream movies and TV shows, purchase stuff from eBay and Amazon. You can edit family photos and make videos. You can participate in Zoom meetings and text friends to stay connected to the outside world. You can also play video games on your device. Some people can even play the more complex games, like Minecraft and World of Warcraft. You can install an Apple or Android emulator to run their apps as well. You can even use programs to mirror your home computer, other computers, and your smart devices for your home. Your communication device can be your own entertainment center, and only limited by your ability. That's why training is so detrimental, and once you learn how to communicate on your device, you can advance forward, move mountains, unlock new possibilities and worlds.
I can confirm that both Charlie and OCL are moving mountains with their communication devices and everything, in just the few ways I have interacted with them in comparison to everything that they've listed. Odyssey, do you want to take some time to read the chat really quick?
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Amy in chat said, at Anita, my pal's husband used recordings of his voice to create voice banking. I don't know offhand the company that helped, but I can find out for you. My email is aedun0921@gmail if you want to send me an email, and I'll use that to ask him. And Kia in chat said, is there any way to use FaceTime, open up attachments or links or pictures? Talk to Me does not allow this, and Bridging Voices told us that is not an option either. Should we look into trying to get another one? And I also want to apologize in advance if I am butchering anyone's name or mispronouncing your name. I am very sorry. And you could feel free to send me a spelling of how you pronounce it.
Thank you, Ashley.
Sorry, one more. Chris in chat said, OCL and Charlie, were you previous to your diagnosis technical wizards? If not too personal, were you into using technology then and now?
We'll definitely get those questions written down and give them some time to get some answers ready. I'm going to move over to you, Emily. The next question is, how can I access social media from/with Toby?
So every Toby's different, but all of the Windows-based Tobys, you can use either the built-in accessible app to access social media. So they should have like an Instagram, a TikTok, Facebook, and a few other apps in there. It would be kind of hard to explain how to go through all the steps to do that, but you would have to go to the advanced settings and then add those apps to your homepage of Communicator 5, if you're using Communicator 5. TD Snap would be a little bit different to how to add that. Or you can go to the desktop portion of it through computer control, and then just go to Facebook, Twitter, anything else through like that internet, how you typically would. If this is something you're interested in too, you can email me and we can figure out a way to like send you those exact steps. And then also, if you're working with a speech therapist, they can help you do the training to understand how to get to that easily.
Thank you. Nakam and Emily, I'm wondering if there are any videos from either of your organizations, don't mean to put you on the spot right now, that exist that walk someone through the steps like that. Does that exist already?
There are some videos, not by us, but some of the vendors have videos describing in detail how to set that up and how to use those apps. So
Awesome.
there are a lot of resources out there.
Well, I know we'll do some digging to find some of those and share them out post-event. Thank you. All right, next one's for Mackenzie. Do I need a low-tech communication system if I have a communication device?
Yeah, so a low-tech system would just be referring to something that doesn't include technology. So something like a piece of paper. And my answer has always been a very big yes. There will be times that your device could malfunction, or you are in the restroom, or you're trying to take a shower, and you don't want to be dependent to always use that, high-tech device, because there'll just be instances that will not work. And you never want to have the high-tech device have something go awry and all of a sudden be left with no way to communicate. So using some sort of a piece of paper or a way to like scan through some options to spell out messages without using technology can be really helpful.
Thanks, Mackenzie. All right, we're going to move on to a few questions that are about obtaining a speech device. This first question is for Mackenzie and Emily.
Sorry, Blake, before you ask the question, can I go to chat?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Sean in chat said, TD Pilot does FaceTime. Charlie said, I was a heavy duty mechanic, which gave me close attention to technology. Nicole said, Talk to Me should allow all of those things except FaceTime, which is specifically an Apple product. Have you spoken with their tech support? And I believe that this was a question or a response to a question that was posed earlier in chat. OCL said, Chris, I grew up with technology, so learning how to use eye gaze technology was super easy and natural for me. Stephen said, I am able to still work using eye gaze. I am a computer engineer and do computer programming. So there truly is a number of things that can be done using eye gaze. William shared, if you have one device and looking to get a supplemental device to do some things that the first device cannot do, how is the best way to get the cost of the second device covered by insurance or an organization? And Anita shared, I have been asked to choose either the TD or the TD pilot, leaning toward pilot, looking for feedback from others that use the pilot.
Thanks, Aditi. And Anita, I know that is one of the questions that's coming up, so I hope we can get you an answer in just a minute. So this next question for Mackenzie and Emily, how do I pay for a speech device? An app? Will insurance cover the cost of an eye gaze system?
I can go first, and Emily, if you want to answer, please do. So speech generating devices, the high-tech computers that OCL and Charlie are using tonight, those are covered. They're classified as durable medical equipment. And you can always reach out to your insurance company if you have private insurance and see how they may be covered. With Medicaid, every state covers a little bit differently, so you'll just want to learn a little bit more about your specific state. And with Medicare, they're typically covered at the 80% level, and then a supplement or a secondary insurance may be able to pick up more. Of course, those are general rules, and sometimes that does not happen, but you can also call your insurance company and ask about the specific code of speech generating devices to see whether that code is covered under your benefits.
And apps usually aren't covered. And if you are going to go through insurance for one device, you only get one every 5 years. So you really wouldn't want to use your insurance money on like an app, because an app's about $100, whereas a speech generating device is way more expensive. So for an app or an iPad, anything like that, your local ALSA chapter might have that. And then Team Gleason also will send out an iPad and an app to you if you need that and you're not ready for a big device through insurance just yet.
Thank you. All right, the next one's for you again, Emily. Can a person get an eye gaze if on hospice with Medicare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Medicaid?
Typically, no. Most hospices do not cover, you won't be able to get it through your insurance. Sometimes, and this is very rare, but hospice may purchase a speech generating device. I really haven't seen it happen, but some hospices do say that they'll do that. Again, if you're on hospice, this is in no means like branding for Team Gleason, but we do cover speech generating devices and send out loaners if you are on hospice. So that's something you could reach out to us as well. If you have a speech generating device and you go on hospice, you can keep your device. You just can't go through insurance when you're on hospice.
That's super helpful. Thanks, Emily. All right, next is for Mackenzie. Can I upgrade to a new communication device if newer versions come out with features I want? And then after this one, we'll go to the chat without a T.
I think Emily just answered that question. Typically, insurance companies and Medicare will only let you get a new device every 5 years. Ask whatever device manufacturer you go with. You would just want to also ask that question if they have any sort of an upgrade program or if there's a way to access their updates.
I just want to add one thing too. That's an important question because a lot of times we might get a device way too soon. And it's so important to make sure like the timing that you receive a device is that right timing, not too soon, but not too late, because you do want to learn how to use it when you are still comfortable with learning new technology. But if you get a device very early on and you really don't need it for 2.5 years, well, a newer device might come out that has all these new features and you wouldn't be eligible for that upgrade except for every 5 years. So working with an SLP who's comfortable with that right timing is important.
Can I throw something in?
Yeah, please do.
And it seems to apply to many of the questions and answers going on, that if someone really is stuck, then there are options for purchasing an eye tracking device on eBay, which very often is going to be much lower than the cost of a copay. It needs to be done with guidance, because you can get something that's useless because it looks like an eye tracker but doesn't actually track the eyes. But there are many, many options there, and we've helped a lot of pals purchase devices on eBay, and they were successful purchases.
Thank you, Malcolm. Going to chat. Sharon in chat shared, if you are a veteran, make sure to get connected to the VA. VA usually can fund devices for veterans. Sean said, Pilot is great except scroll. Apple is working on it. I use both Windows and Pilot iPad. Charlie shared, I use an i15 Toby. I use Windows Control and a program called Next Step Talker. I shared the link to request support from Team Gleason. Terry asked, are there technologies available once TD devices are no longer viable due to losing muscle control in your eyes? I have investigated brain-computer interfaces, BCI, and I'm wondering if you know of any viable non-invasive BCI technologies that work well. Garrett said there are some apps that will let you control your cell phone with your eyes, just depends on the user. Nicole said VA SLP here in an ALS clinic, 100% agree. With an ALS diagnosis, you will receive all of your equipment. And Charlie said, I use a program called Mighty Text to control my phone. Oh, and Julie asked, where do you find the Windows apps to link them into Communicator 5? Back to you, Blake.
Thank you very much. All right, this next one's for you, Mackenzie. Is there any one best device I should try to get, or should I try multiple devices?
My opinion on this question is that you should always try multiple devices. Like we talked about earlier, especially with eye tracking, every eye tracker is created differently and they work differently depending on your specific eyes and your specific glasses, your specific situations. Different devices are going to work differently and work better for you. So I always encourage you, kind of going back to those initial questions we addressed tonight, that you're working with a speech pathologist who really understands this type of equipment so that they're able to show you and allow you to use all sorts of different types of equipment.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Lots of nuances with everyone's experience. Okay, our next one is about pilot eye gaze. It's for Nakam, OCL, and Emily. Let's go with OCL. We'll have you answer this one first. Can anyone vouch for the pilot eye gaze? And OCL says, I've had the TD Pilot for about 6 months now, and I absolutely love it. For anyone who may not know, in November 2021, Tobii Dynavox launched an iPad with fully integrated eye gaze technology called the TD Pilot. I've always had an iPhone and Apple products, so switching to this device when my Tobii i12 Plus started malfunctioning was a no-brainer for me. However, the decision between the TD Pilot and the new Tobii i13 Plus definitely had its trade-offs. There were 2 main features that the TD Pilot didn't offer, and the first is the ability to use custom voice and message banking when communicating. I'm not sure why this isn't a feature available yet, but I figure that it will eventually become available in the near future as the technology is made to be compatible with it. So instead of using the custom voice and message banking that I recorded and used on my old device, I am now using a generic synthetic voice offered on the TD Pilot for the time being. And OCL also says the second feature not yet available on the TD Pilot that I had to consider is the ability to drive my wheelchair with my eyes. Again, I'm hopeful that technology will eventually get up to speed so that these features will become available on the TD Pilot. Aside from those two things, I've had an excellent experience with this device. The eye tracking is extremely accurate. I have only had to recalibrate it to my eyes twice in the past 6 months. I've never had an issue with it freezing or randomly shutting off. It has a great battery life. The apps available to download and use are endless. It's pretty reliable when going outside. And most of all, it's given me a new level of independence with everything I'm able to do with it. Thanks, Asiel. Emily or Malcolm, did either of you want to touch on this?
I think Sean added in one or two other things that I'm really not credentialed to answer this question well. One of my colleagues, Deb, who's on the line, is more credentialed, but Sean was mentioning one feature, another feature that doesn't work on the Pilot. Scrolling is much more difficult, and also hiding the trace while you're trying to read something in a browser, I think is another limitation which people have been complaining about. And I think just more in the general sense from the bridging voice side of things, because we deal so much with people along the entire progression, and at some points in time, people need customizations and remote support to a very large degree, and those are really not as available on the TD Pilot like they are with other Windows-based devices. So if someone needs iOS or an Apple product, it's just a great product. But if somebody is looking for safety, it's definitely questionable if that's something that you can say in a year from now is going to work for someone along the ALS journey.
Super helpful.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a good point to consider too. Like, it's not as easy to customize if things may change in the future. I've had a few clients that I've worked with trying to decide between the two. And what we do is we do an at-home trial of both. They might do an at-home trial of the I-13 or I-16 for a week, 2-3 weeks. And then they might do the at-home trial with the TD Pilot for a few weeks too. And then they can actually see a great comparison of like, what does one do that the other might not, or which one might work better for me. So again, it's really trying to figure out which one works best for you through trying it out, and then having someone ask those questions and then rate them. Well, how do you feel this one worked for navigation or whatever you want to ask, and then have them rate it 1 to 10. And then it's more objective, because I've had some people who were in love with Apple and they were like, okay, the TD Pilot must be the one for me. But then when we actually put it out on paper objectively, the Windows was better for them. And that's only for that specific person. Again, every person will be a little different.
And Deborah Zeitlin just reminded me that they did release the ability to install custom voices into the TD Pilot, so you can use your own voice now.
Thank you. And going to chat, Sean said, Android phones are typically easier to use with eye gaze, but I do have an iPhone solution. Sean also said, custom voice is coming. Sharon said, you can now use acapella my own voice on TD Pilot. Sean said, LifeDrive has an iPad driving solution. And Emily said, Sean is an expert. And Sean said, coming in the future, I drive with Pilot now as a developer. iPad can only do screen sharing. You can't remote in. Garrett said, if you're not tech savvy, then stick with the basics. William said, did you say there's an app for the PC that allows you to run iOS apps? If yes, what is the name of the app? And Sean said, Windows TV Control is also very good.
Thanks, Aditi. All right, we're going to move into a few questions that are about message and voice banking. So the first one's for Charlie and Emily, and it's a 3-part question, so bear with me on this. What is voice and message banking? What are the differences? And then the third part to this is, are there synthetic voices available if you don't voice bank? So Charlie, we'll have you get us started on this one.
What is voice banking? Voice banking is using a company that specializes in manufacturing synthetic voices, based on the approximated voice of their customer. They use recordings of their customer's voice speaking predefined phrases and individual words, while they still have the ability to speak. Then the company can generate an approximate synthetic voice that can be used in most text-to-speech programs and communication devices. Even though it's not the authentic voice of the customer, it sounds the same. There is also message banking, which is different than voice banking. Message banking is the process of recording phrases and words of your actual voice that can be used in the future for friends and family. Every day I regret not voice banking my voice before I lost it due to ALS. Your voice is your identity. I use the Microsoft David voice because, by the time I found new synthetic voices, everyone was already used to my David voice. You can download many generic synthetic voices from the internet, and you can purchase hundreds of premium voices from companies like Acapella, Sirens, Ivona, AT&T, Kepstrel, Sirproc, and Nuance. Still, these voices don't work in the Communicator 5 software or Apple devices. Most voices work in the Grid 3 software. It's possible to activate some of the narrating voices within Microsoft Windows to work in Communicator 5 and Grid 3 communication programs.
Thanks for sharing that, Charlie. Emily, I wanted to see if you had anything to add on to that.
Yeah, Charlie did a pretty great job. How much time do we have? Because I love talking about voice banking.
We are very limited.
All right, I'm going to
feel free to go ahead.
Voice and message banking is so incredible and so important. Like Charlie said, our voice is our identity. It's important for us to be able to hear and control how we sound to others. If we're upset, we want them to know we're upset. If we're happy to see them, we want them to hear that in our voice. And then if you think about too, like the impact our voice has on those around us, a baby will understand that their mom is speaking to them, not because they know the words, but because they know their voice. So we think about it even those early on, like that connection. Voice banking is, like Charlie said, the synthetic component. It's just kind of like a computer code that you can put on a lot of different devices or apps, and anything you type out will come out in a voice similar to yours. Message banking, and because it can be so flexible, voice banking, it's not going to be as authentic as you sound. It won't have the ups and downs of your voice, but it'll be more of kind of a more flat tone. But because of that, you also do what's called message banking. And that's pretty much if you were to record your voice on your phone and play it back, it sounds exactly like you. So like Charlie mentioned, those are for your words and phrases that are super important to you and important to others. They show a lot about your hobbies, your interests, or just what you say day to day. We love to say tons of like cultural stuff too, like y'all. We have tons of those around me. So that's a little bit about the difference between voice and message banking, but I'm happy to answer plenty more questions on that.
Thanks, Emily. Emily, we've got a lot more questions for you in a row, so get ready. The next one's, I've done voice banking, but don't know what to do next. Can you share some advice?
So I guess if that means like what to do with the voice next, if you are still speaking and don't need to use it just yet, it depends which company you go through. Usually you can keep it on their server, or if you request call for delivery, they'll usually send you an email with it. And I think I'm going to take it like that's what it was meant to be asking.
And if that person who asked that question's here and did not get their full answer, you can always reach out to any of us for follow-up.
Going to chat, Charlie shared, I went to Toby's TD pilot meeting this morning and they can now do voice banking. Patrick said, for anyone wondering about the TD Talk software, it can now use voice banking from Acapella, My Own Voice, Model Talker, and the Voice Keeper. Sean said, Grid 3 is Windows only. Grid for iPad is not gaze aware. I get asked this a lot. TD Talk on iPad Pilot is very fast to use. And Chris said, I am applying with my speech pathologist next week to Team Gleason for software to start voice banking. Beginner question, can I use an iPad or should I use my HP laptop?
It's a great question, Chris, which we will get to. Emily, next one for you as well. Are there, sorry, my voice is too weak to complete the process for a message and voice banking. Do I have any options so I don't have to use a standard synthesized voice?
Yes, so if you have any old recordings, depending on how much of that recording you have, you need about 4 to 5 minutes of older recordings to create a voice. There's a few different options for which company to use for that. There is another company, Speak Unique, that you can try to create your voice with as well. So if you already have speech changes, they have a voice repair program where they can try to take out some of those changes. So if you do feel like you sound more nasally or more hoarse, they can try to reduce that quality in your voice. And then really quick, the iPad, it's easier to just use an HP laptop because with an iPad, you would have to get another dongle to like plug in your headset and all kinds of stuff. So it's easiest to just use a laptop for voice banking.
Thanks, Emily. I've always been in awe of technology, but this conversation has even more just like blown my mind in terms of what is possible. All right, next couple of questions are again for Emily and they're about alternate access. The first is, are there ways that I can actually, Nakam, I'm gonna ask you what is alternate access and who can help me find the right alternate access tools? You're muted, Nakam.
It's nice that it tells me that I'm muted these days. Alternate access refers to other ways of accessing your computer if you can't use the keyboard or mouse. And it's a pretty wide spectrum. It could be as simple as just a different mouse that's a different shape. It could be a trackball. It could be a mouse that you control with any part of your body. And it goes up until, eye tracking and all sorts of alternate methods. And this is something where you really do need a professional, a therapist involved who will evaluate what you're capable of doing and match you with the alternative access method that will work for you. And so that usually includes, it's either a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist who can help make that evaluation.
Thank you very much. In preparation for this event, Nakam and I were talking about alternate access and how he could do an entire event on this. And Bridging Voice actually does have a presentation that we'll be sure to share out post-event with more detail on all of that. Okay, so Emily, are there ways that I can continue using my phone or computer if I'm having trouble using my hands?
Yes, absolutely. And the presentation that Nakam will share out will probably be very helpful for that. So there are so many different methods for accessing your computer, your phone, your TV, everything if you're having trouble using your hands. And you could use your voice, your head, your eyes, your feet, all kinds of stuff.
Great. And then the reverse of this question submitted by someone else was, I can still use my hands, but I have trouble speaking. What can I do?
And for that, you can also use your phone, your iPad, tablet, all kinds of stuff with an app, a text-to-speech app to speak for you. Or again, working with a speech therapist to find what might be the best way to help you communicate.
And in chat, Garrett said, I find that if you are tech savvy and like doing a lot on your device, then using Communicator 5 will cause your device to crash a lot. Definitely want to find a new communication app like Grid 3. Also, if your device freezes and you panic like I do, then I suggest buying an alarm button if you have any body movement.
Thanks, Garrett. All right, the next couple of questions. Well, first I want to acknowledge that we are coming up on time. If all of our panelists are open to staying in maybe an extra 10 minutes, I think that might be helpful. I want to do a quick check-in though, unless people need to go, we'll be willing to stay on. Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait for Charlie and OCL to confirm.
Yes.
Thanks, Charlie. OCL says 100%. Thanks, OCL. All right, next question is for OCL and Nakam. How can I type faster on my eye tracking device? People get impatient while I type. And OCL, I'll turn this to you first. So OCL says, most eye tracking devices should have a setting called keyboard dwell time, which can be adjusted so you can type at a speed you feel most comfortable with. In my personal experience, I have always typed at the fastest dwell time possible so I can try and minimize the time that it takes me to respond. However, despite me being great with technology and my eyes being in tip-top shape, the reality is that this unique style of communication takes time and patience. Until technology becomes more advanced to support a faster method of communication, I would recommend to inform people right off the bat that it will take time for you to type out your response. I usually have one of my caregivers say this as I'm typing and typing my response out, but if I'm by myself, I have a pre-typed and saved message that I can pull up quickly to tell the person that it will take time to type out everything I want to say. If someone loses patience when you're doing everything you can to respond quickly, then I'll just be straight up, maybe that person needs a reality check. Not gonna be, no, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, so I just want to add to what OCL mentioned, and that's true that really the dwell time on an eye tracker is very important. You know, as fast as someone can type accurately, it's very important to set it to that speed so that they can type quickly, but it's just as important that it should be slow enough so that someone is not backspacing over errors constantly. And so making sure that it's at the right speed, not necessarily the quickest speed. So obviously there are a lot of tricks to this. This is another one that we could go on for forever, but obviously using predictions well is an important feature. Having the predictions dwell time slower, predictive phrases helps someone type quicker. In most of the devices, there's a feature, some sort of feature of like abbreviation expansion, which is extremely important. And a lot of people don't know about it, where you can just type in a quick 2 or 3 characters and that will bring up an entire phrase. That can save a ton of time, especially for someone who's really well-versed in what phrases they have in their device. Having special buttons with phrases ready to go, like OCL mentioned, is very important. Error correction is also very important. That's something that we specialize in, having page sets or boards where you can quickly correct errors. The quicker you can correct an error, the more quickly you'll be typing and speaking out that message. And there's like about another 150 things to add to this list.
Very long list. Thanks, Malcolm. Okay, the next one. Yeah.
Sorry, can I go to chat real quick?
Yeah.
Sean said, agree on periodic Windows freezes. The Pilot iPad Pro doesn't freeze. Sharon said, speech assistant AAC is free on Android devices. TD Talk is free for Apple devices if you can type use direct select. Anita shared, I'm currently able to make TTY calls on my iPhone when I'm no longer able to use my phone. Will I be able to make TTY calls on the TTY iGaze products? And Neil in chat said, OCL and Charlie et al. Are amazing. And thank you. And Blake said, quite literally, Neil. Sean said, great panel today. Chris said, another beginner question. Are the letters set up like a typewriter for iGaze technology? I am a great typist, but iTypist might be different. Words used a lot like the, I assume, might be chunked. Sorry, we are running short on time. Kia said, I just want to thank you all so much for this incredible panel. Gail said, so much great information. Thank you to all. And Jonah said, anyone have any bright ideas on how to extend the battery life on a TD Dynavox Surface tablet running Grid 3? I run out of power after about 2 hours when I am out and about.
And Jonah, that's actually one of our next questions about power and battery. So we will be there in just a moment. Thank you, Odyssey. So our next one's for you, Nakam. I often have to try 10 times to hit the right letter on my keyboard with my eyes. Can this be fixed?
Yes, most of the time it can be fixed with a customization where usually if someone's accuracy is causing them to hit the J instead of the K, so there are ways to make it that when you backspace that the K disappears. I'm sorry, the J disappears and that you won't hit it incorrectly a second time, which gives you, some people will just keep hitting the wrong one again and again, and that will just get rid of the button once you hit backspace so that you won't make that mistake a second time. There are many, many ways to customize most of the software, communication software that's available to allow you to error correct an error with 1 or 2 clicks, and you won't have to go and try again. And all of this we can expand upon later on. I mean, I guess in some very detailed, lengthy document answering all of the great questions that were on this call.
Yes. This next one's for you, Charlie. Any ideas on how to make the battery last longer when I'm out and about?
If you're an iGaze jet setter, here are a few hints to extending your device's battery power when you're out and about. First, turn the brightness of your screen down as low as you can, while still being able to use it. Next, put your device to sleep or shut it down while not using it. Keep your charger handy, so if you see an electrical outlet, you can plug it in. Just charging your device for 10 minutes can make all the difference in the world. If you use a handicapped van, you can also install a power inverter. An inverter converts your vehicle's electrical power to a regular power outlet, so you can charge all your electrical devices. Some handicapped vehicles already have this feature from the factory. Finally, Permobil and Quantum Power Chairs make an adapter to charge your communication device and smartphone, so check with your power chair manufacturer. I hope this advice helps.
Lots of great tips, Charlie. Thank you. All right, we are running up again on our other time. So I'm going to move to the next question. This one's for OCL and Nakam. My eye tracker sometimes freezes and I can't call for help. What can I do in these situations? So OCL, I'll have you go first. OCL says, this happened to me many times in the past with my Tobii I-12 Plus, and I'll admit, for someone who's paralyzed and nonverbal, it can be a scary situation if nobody is around to help you, or if it happens in the middle of the night. I'd recommend to have a baby monitor near you in situations that you're alone. And if you have any ability to move, there are medical devices that you can buy and push so that it will make a noise to alert your caregivers. Since getting the TD pilot, I have never had this issue, which has been a huge relief.
Okay, I mean, this is a very, very important question. And everyone asks it because it happens to everyone, especially on the Windows devices. So some pals have been using an Android phone next to their eye tracker with Project Activate from Google to allow them to make an eye gesture, which can activate an alarm, or it can even reboot their Tobii for them. So just based on an eye gesture. So that's one option, you know, if there's no other easier one. We are actually in the middle of working together with AT Makers, and we have a couple of prototypes of a device that we're going to call it the eye tracker not working smoke alarm. And what this is it will stay behind the pals, and if the infrared stops coming out of the eye tracker, it starts alarming. And that, so for 8 out of 10 times that it freezes, the infrared will stop emitting from the eye tracker, and this will be a tremendous safety piece. Sometimes it does freeze and the infrared still emits, and it won't help for that, but that will help a lot. So we're hoping it's going to be done within the next couple of weeks. And it doesn't have an assistive technology cost. I think the person who's making them, I think he said he's going to be charging $60 a piece. Okay.
That is truly genius.
All right, moving to chat. Nicole said, awesome panel and information. Always happy to learn more to help our amazing people living with ALS. I am so sorry to this next person. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your name. Jumo said, TD Dynavox replaced my batteries after 3 years. They said they are only meant to last 2 years. Casman said, wonderful session, thank you. Chris said, thank you so much. Vivian said, thank you for this panel. And I want to thank Nachum from Bridging Voice, Christine Copley from Compassionate Care, and Team Gleason for helping so much. Me and my husband in all the voice banking and communication process. So grateful with all of you. Debbie said, it's also overwhelming, especially for my mom, who is 83 years old and losing her voice. If you are not tech savvy, is there a best option? We have seen ALS Clinic SLP and Referral SLP who say, you decide. Sean said, if I use my Surface Pro away from home, I use some Bat Power batteries. And Sean said, genius. Richard said, brilliant. Sean said, I am not a speller. Brian said, thank you, Charlie, OCL, and panel. Very informative, great seminar. Julie said, thank you guys. Sherry said, sorry, I got in a bit late. I am wondering if my question about Chinese language option resources had been answered. And Angelina said, that's amazing. Charlie needs one. Okay, I'm his wife. I need on for him, especially when I'm watching my soaps. LOL. And Jonah said, thank you, everyone. Very useful info.
Thank you, Odyssey. All right, this next one, again, we have just about 3 minutes left, is for Nachum. What options are there for someone who has progressed beyond their ability to use Tobii due to poor eye movement? BCI, question mark?
Oh, maybe Emily wants to answer that one. Okay, just okay. That's you know, that's a really tough question, but I'll say 2 things. Number one, don't necessarily assume that your eyes can't control an eye tracking device, because we've had people assume that before and it was completely not true. There are so many ways to make an eye tracker work for someone, even though their eyes are more challenged than before. So I think that's the first most important assumption not to make. there aren't a lot of good options at the moment for BCI, after eye tracking. There's a tremendous amount of promise. There's so many encouraging products right now that are hopefully coming to market within the next year to two. And we have been testing some of these products, and there's definitely promise there that wasn't there before. And, there's I don't want to go through names of companies and different sorts of implantable, wearable, and sort of things that are in between. And there's just a lot of promise there, and hopefully we'll see something come out within the next year or two.
Awesome. And we are going to slot in just one last question. And I think it kind of is a good way to sum up everything. And it's the question that Debbie just asked. If you're not tech savvy, what is the best option? And I'll add to that, maybe where do you start?
Should I just send them to Malcolm?
Well,
No, you're not tech savvy.
Was the question referring to where do they start the process of getting an eye tracker or using an eye tracker?
I slotted that in, so let's ignore that part. The question strictly it was Debbie. So Debbie said, it's also overwhelming, especially for my mom who's 83 years old and losing her voice. If you're not tech savvy, is there a best option?
Yes. I mean, there's not one best option. It's just starting really slow and making little wins throughout the way. If she's losing her voice, but she can still use her hands, then I would start with something that she's familiar with. So if she's familiar with texting on a phone, then texting on an iPad might be similar, or texting on a communication app on a phone might be similar. And then also with someone that is very uncomfortable with technology, getting started early on with just functions that they're interested in is always important. So maybe someone comes to me for an evaluation and I ask, are you familiar with technology or comfortable with it? And they say no. Well, then I would probably start in that session, even like working on texting their children more often, or even looking up YouTube videos, just anything like early on that'll get them comfortable a little bit at a time.
So, thanks, Emily. Is there anything else that any of the panelists want to add on? Malcolm, it looked like you're about to say something.
Well, yeah, about 4 hours worth of talking. There's so many great questions here. How are we going to address all of them?
I don't know. It might be a part 2 that we have, which is very much in discussion. But with that, I want to thank everyone for being here today. I know there are a ton of questions we didn't get a chance to get to, so we have these written down in a document that I'm staring at right now. We know who posed the questions, and we have emails, I believe, for everyone. If you don't hear from us in the coming days, or maybe even probably, I want to set the expectation, maybe the coming weeks with some more information specific to your question, please reach out. We may just not have had your email tied to your name on Zoom. But with that being said, Emily Malcolm, is there an email address you can drop in the chat, maybe for you or for like an information? And I know Mackenzie's dropped our Get Help one, but I'll drop it one more time. We are happy to, again, answer additional questions on top of the ones that were posed today, and also to provide support in any other ways that is needed by anyone who's here today. We are so appreciative of everyone being here, and we hope to see you again soon at another event or at other community team meetings and things like that. Shall we do one more read of the chat, Aditi?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonah said, thank you, everyone. Very useful info. Blake said, Sherry, we have not yet. We will be in touch with you after today's event to share more. And Sherry said, looking forward to it. Angelina said, that's great to hear. Charlie has always said, if he ever is unable to communicate with his eyes, then the journey will be over. I need this man, in my world. So knowing this helps my heart. I shared that. Thank you all so much for your amazing questions. I apologize that we did not have time for all of the questions today. If we did not answer them, as Blake mentioned, we will follow up with you with information. Debbie said, thank you, everyone. You were amazing. Garrett said, I wish there was a way to make TD Control speak, as it gives you the ability to type on a drop-down board below the keyboard. And Nachum and Emily both entered their emails in chat. Charlie said, thank you, everyone. OCL said, thank you, everyone, for being here. Hope this was helpful. And Neil said, very excellent. Karen said, thank you. Patrick said, thank you, everyone. This was wonderful. Gary said, I am trying a G. And Blake said, put in the I AM ALS contact information as well. And Gary said, YRO alarm that alerts on head movement. I think this may be a full sentence. I am trying the alarm that alerts on head movement. MF said, very helpful. Tamara said, thank you so much. Great information. And Jumo said, what about a regular eye gaze support group? Well, thank you all. I'm going to save the chat as well so that we have a copy of all of this.
Yep. All righty. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Bye. Hi, Sybil.